academies over here.
Is there anyone teaching tool making at this point? Is there still educational opportunities?
Yeah, there's a lot of different traditional technologies kind of classes that go on. There's big nap-ins out at Glass Buttes. A few native people go out there, but it's mostly non-native people. And most of the tribes have a cultural camp of some kind where they're teaching that to the young people, but most tribes, I'm sure, are like ours, and it's tribal members only really at our cultural camps. And like with our basketry traditions, we used to have annual classes, and we'd allow non-tribal community members and people that work for the tribe but weren't tribal members join in on those classes and stuff, but we've sort of backed off of that because of wanting to keep those things special and to ourselves. There's a lot of people already that kind of know those things, and we try to encourage them to be respectful and not market it. A lot of our tribal families, up until very recently, pretty much made a lot of the family income by their basketry, even though they weren't getting very much per basket in those days. Now that we're down to very few weavers, basketry is a lot more appreciated and sought after, and people are generally willing to pay a little bit more, but people really, in general, don't have an appreciation for what it takes to go out and dig those roots and gather all those sticks and get it just the right kind of material at the right time of the year, prepare it all, put it away, gather your other materials you need for designs, and then when you have all of that material together and prepared, then you can start weaving, and then the weaving process is fairly lengthy, so a lot of people aren't willing to pay what would be a decent hourly wage for all of that work it takes to make that. How are you?
Could you comment on the rise and the fall of the population, the size, and how many, perhaps at various times, what the population would have been in various periods, maybe back 100 years, 200 years, whatever, before that?
Probably same as yours. We was all subject to the same disease, you know, that the whites brought in, so.
What was it before the, do you have any estimate, before the white man arrived here, how that would affect the population?
It's all estimates. No one does a good idea. There's a scholar named Robert Boyd who wrote a book actually just about that. That was called Coming of the Spirit of Pestilence. And so we went there and tried to figure out, going through records of all kinds and archaeological sites and make estimates of populations. I have that book at home. Coos Bay was maybe, you know, a couple thousand people, little small Umpqua Siuslaw. I'm not sure of the LC people. The Yahaik village here was probably a rather small village. The larger villages would have been around the mouth of the LC River where Waldport is. But I have seen estimates where they see all the illnesses that came through, smallpox and flu, and then eventually malaria was introduced, all sorts of really nasty things. Tuberculosis, yeah, killed 90% of the population minimum, and often a lot more than that, sometimes as high as 99%. Whole villages would die. There's horrible stories like on the Columbia River about, you know, people, you know, some fur trappers such returning to a village, everyone was dead. There stood the houses empty, and no one was left. They'd all perished. And of course, you know, the native medicines, we didn't have, you know, medicines to treat by and large these new strange diseases. And when doctors, our Indian doctors would try, you kind of the cuss around here, sometimes, you know, if people were upset with the doctor and thought maybe the doctor had caused it or failed to cure it, the doctor would be killed. So, you know, in the fear and the panic and the terror of all these people dying, just falling from these frightening new diseases, a lot of doctors got killed too sometimes, just kind of in the general community uproar and terror of, you know, as it was ripping through a community.
Or intertribal warfare, because they would assume it was
yeah, too.
I'm fascinated by the, I grew up in Canada and with the Northwest Indians, and they saved a lot of things up there, incredible. But I was curious about the Indian life before the white man was there, some of the uniqueness of your life. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
I think so. In talking about estimation of population, there's a lot of historical sources that kind of give us clues as to probably some of the inaccuracy of, or inaccuracy of some of the research or of some of the assumptions, especially that were made by people. Because once populations were based here and observing the remnants of village populations that were around them, their impression was that's the way it's always been. Or to some extent that, you know, it couldn't have been too much more than this. It's hard to imagine it being a large thriving population. But there was a Army military person, I think, I can't remember if it was Lieutenant Hazen or who it was, that talks about being here in this area and at Yaquina Bay, and he talks about traveling through the country, and he said every inhabitable spot shows signs of once having contained a dense population. And so when you think of it, that's a pretty extreme statement. Every inhabitable spot shows signs of once having contained a dense population. And you know, if you go through historic photos, you'll see house pits in places where there aren't obvious signs of house pits today, and lots of recorded place names, and it lists how many houses were there during the people that were interviewed's memory, which was a time after epidemics. And so they wouldn't have known how many houses were there before the epidemics. And a lot of times these villages were abandoned. Either everybody died in it or almost everybody died, and the remnants moved in with relatives somewhere where the village hadn't been as impacted. Communities collapsed into one, I think, in a lot of cases. So.
And isn't that what happened to the people of Yamai? That basically, that they succumbed to disease?
Yeah, when the people were moved in from the south here, 1859 or 60.
I think 60, what was
60 or
62,
60.
63?
Was it that late?
Well, it was after Fort Umpqua was closed, around 1862.
Yeah. They said when they arrived there was a house that was still contained the unburied remains of the last people who were living here. So.
Not a good welcoming, I gotta say, not a good sign.
But that's for the most part, that's, I think, people arriving from the South's impression of what happened. If anybody had talked to LC people at that time, they'd say, oh yeah, the very last few people from there moved in with us, which is quite possible. They're most closely related folks.